Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. Game Week 7 is done, and we have 31 weeks left to go. How was Game Week 7 for you? With an average of 60 points, it means that we definitely did better than the previous 2 weeks. So I hope he managed to get 60 or above. So if you did really well, I'm sure you had Semenyo in your team and possibly captained or even triple captained him. If you didn't, you probably captained Salah or Isaac. I don't know. Or if you're an unfortunate soul, you captained Richarlison or gyokeres. This week was interesting because of expectations. Those who gambled on Bournemouth really hit the jackpot, especially if you had Semenyo. And if for whatever reason you decided to have Kluivert. When looking at Spurs versus Leeds, I had previously said Champions League's fixtures would impact the weekend, and this is one of those fixtures which was affected. There was a bit of a rotation and which messed us up, especially for us who were expecting Richarlison to score against Leeds. If you had Kudus, well done to you. Kudos to you. Arsenal beat West Ham 2-0. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we thought gyokeres would appear in this one. Man United finally won, but it wasn't exactly how we wanted them to win. No Bruno, no Mbumo. Well, I guess he had an assist. No Cunha, and they kept a clean sheet. Maybe he will keep his job. And then, out of the blue, Chelsea defeated Sunderland. Talk about at his Sunderland. Chelsea defeated Liverpool. Talk about a Chelsea dagger. Right at the end, Esteve comes up with the goods. And for a weakened and depleted Chelsea side, that was incredible. Now, it's still clear that Mr. Slot hasn't figured out his team or what he wants to do, and 3 losses in a row, no one's going to complain, unless you have Salah, of course. Aston Villa continued to win. Rodgers had an assist, but it was Marlon who was the main performer this game week. And so Aston Villa, it seems like you still do not know who will be the guy to perform, because it definitely wasn't Watkins. And it's interesting because all the relegated sides lost, I think, for the first time this weekend. I mean, they all lost together for the first time. Speaking of losses, I was just over here talking about you have to respect unbeaten runs. Well, somebody tell Everton, because they didn't get the memo. They beat Crystal Palace 2-1. Crystal Palace should have won that game. They had better opportunities to score. But Mateta, if you're a Mateta owner, I'm sure you'll be very disappointed with how he performed and the chances he has been wasting so far. And so, yeah, it just went like that. The clean sheet and the unbeaten run. Nottingham Forest continue to disappoint. So if you're still having Forest players, I'm not sure what you're doing. Newcastle still seem to be solid at home. And honestly, at this point, it makes sense to have a defender from their team. Them and Arsenal are looking like the kind of team that are have defenders worth having. Wolves drew with Brighton, and Wolves are sneaky combative. They're not losing. They're fighting. They're fighting. Man City only won 1-0, and I'm happy I didn't have Haaland as my triple captain, but grateful I had him as my captain, even though Semenyo would have been the best choice in my team. The highest scoring game of the game week could be found at Bournemouth 3, Fulham 1, which was the opening game of the weekend, which was on a Friday. It was quite a tough game for at least the first 70 minutes. And then Semenyo popped up with a goal. And then out of nowhere, Semenyo just showed up and performed magic. His first goal, I've been thinking this for a while. And I think Semenyo is a poor man's Rafael Leao. Thoughts? Anyway. Because when that boy runs with the ball, he's really hard to stop. And he usually gets to do what he wants. And when he's got things going right for him, he can score against anybody, just like he did against Liverpool at the beginning of the season. The goal he willed for the opener for Fulham was ridiculous. Then Kluivert scored an even more ridiculous goal. And then he scored the finisher with a great counter. At this point, I'm sure many of you are going to be like, it's a fluke. He can't do it again. I'm not going to bring him into my team. You know, when people resist people who are doing good, like I look at some teams and they still don't have Haaland, but they stick with Salah, and you're like, why? Are you playing the game or are you playing your ego? Accept you are wrong. Move on. So Semenyo finished with 2 goals, Kluivert with 1, Semenyo with a goal. Trufer, Semenyo, and Ganondok had the assists, while Chukwueze had the assist for Fulham. Bonus points, of course, as you can imagine, Semenyo had 3 bonus points, Semenyo had 2, and Kluivert had 1. When it comes to the most disappointing game of the game week, I would say maybe Crystal Palace 1, Everton 2. Now, disappointing because Crystal Palace were on an 18-game unbeaten run. They had just beaten Liverpool the week before, so everything was pointing up. They had their chances in this game, and when Munoz scored, I thought, okay, they're just going to carry on and take this game away. And then they just kept missing chances, and Everton saw that there was a game to be had, and they kept attacking. They got rewarded with a penalty, which was a just penalty. Ndiaye scored it, and then he was involved at the end again with a cross, which led to a better header in which Grealish scored the rebound. And just like that, it's over. The unbeaten run comes to an end at the hands of Everton. 2-1 it finished. Now, Bunham had an assist and Sarr had an assist for Crystal Palace. Grealish had the 3 bonus points, Sarr had 2, Tarkowski, Ndiaye, and O'Brien had 1. It shows you how hard they played. Now, another contender for most disappointing game has to be the Spurs 2-1 victory over Leeds, mainly because of the rotations. The rotations really hurt us, and of course conceding didn't help. But the rotations, especially Richarlison, it's looking like this season is going to be really tricky to pick an attacking player. It doesn't seem, outside Haaland, there's no real striker. Your best paid having your focus on defense and midfield so far, and maybe just having Haaland and 2 scrubs. Compared to last week, this week we have 4 clean sheets. So at least you can tell keepers did better. Looking at the round points, in goal, Man United's new keeper Lamens is top with 9 points. Pope had 7. Raya and Donnarumma each had 6. Petrovic, Kelleher, Pickford, Sells, Vicario, Johnston all had 3 to round up the top 5. When it comes to defense, Vardiol was top with 12 points. Timber, Van Hecke, and Dan Burn each had 11. And rounding up the top 5 is Gabriel, Ruben, and Dallo, who had 9. Midfield was king this time around, and up top was Semenyo, who had 18. Marlon had 15. Bruno Guimaraes, 14. Kudus, 12. Rice, 11. Caicedo, 10. Grealish, Mount, 10. When it comes to forwards, Sesko was top with 9 points, Haaland, 8, Voltemada, 6, Isak, 5, and number 4 was Simas, 4. Looking at stats from the game week, although this is not exactly Premier League related, because it isn't, 3 Kluivert brothers scored in 1 week. And I think that's just amazing. Justin, of course, scored for Bournemouth, and then his brother scored for Lyon, and his other brother scored for Barcelona under 19s or under 17s. Patrick Kluivert is very happy wherever he is. After being concerned about Bournemouth and their potential for the season, they are 9 points better off at this point than they were last season. That's incredible, considering they lost Kepa, they lost Huijsen, they lost Gyokeres. We had so many reasons to believe that they would collapse. But here they are, stronger than ever. That's rebuilding. Mohamed Salah, in his 10 games for Liverpool this season, has 6 goal contributions. It's funny, that's actually a reasonable return, but for his standards, It just feels like, meh. There have been 262 long throws into the opposition's penalty area in the Premier League this season. That is already 45% of the total of last season, which was 578. So it shows that there is a change in tactic. Delap. His spirit lives amongst us. Erling Haaland has scored 94 Premier League goals under Pep. Now the 10th most goals scored by a player for a manager in Premier League history, despite him only featuring 104 times. That's an incredible stat. Haaland has 15 goals in all competitions, 9 more than any other Premier League player this season. And he has outscored 12 other clubs. Talk about consistency. Erling Haaland has scored more away Premier League winning goals in 2025 than Manchester United have away wins in this calendar year of 2025. Erling Haaland has now scored in 9 consecutive appearances for club and country, the longest running scoring run in his career. Pep has now won 250 of his 349 Premier League games, and he has 50 draws and 49 losses. It is the fastest any manager has ever reached 250 wins in charge of an English top flight club. Pep just continues doing Pep things. Erling Haaland has now scored at 22 of the 23 stadiums he has played at in the Premier League, the highest percentage of any player in the competition's history, which is 96%. Since the start of April, Morgan Rogers has recorded the most assists in the Premier League, which is 8, and 2 more than any other player. Kudus is second with 6. Since April, not this season, since April. Brighton have won 30 points from losing positions under Fabian Hutzler, and that is more than any other team since the start of last season. That is resilience. Nottingham Forest have lost 6 of their 10 games in all competitions this season. They've won 1 and drawn 3. It wasn't until their 28th game of last season that they suffered their 6th defeat. Oof, that is a telling stat. They might be relegation favourites before too long. Everton have just won 3 of the last 31 home Premier League matches when they've conceded first. But all 3 have come against Crystal Palace. 3-2 in May 2022, 2-1 in September 2024, and this game week, 2-1. Incredible. Wolves have made 25 changes to their starting 11 in the Premier League this season through their first 7 games. Only 2 sides have ever made more. 29 for Man United in 01-02 and 26 for Manchester City in 2012-2013. Tells you Pereira is still trying to figure out what he has. Jordan Pickford made his 300th appearance for Everton. He is the only English player to play with one club 300 games or more. Above him is only David Seaman, who played 325 for Arsenal. Liverpool have conceded 2 winning goals in 2 consecutive Premier League games, and this is the second time that this has happened, and by that I mean where the reigning champions have conceded 2 or more winning goals from the 90th minute onwards in a season. Arsenal last did it in 04-05. With his penalty scored against West Ham, Bukayo Saka has now made it 100 Premier League goal involvements. With his win over West Ham, Arteta now has 177 matches won as manager for Arsenal. That makes him 5th, tied with Jurgen Klopp. At number 1, of course, you guessed it, it is Pep Guardiola, who has 219 victories in 300 games. Jose Mourinho has 196, Kenny Dalglish 185, and then Jurgen Klopp and Mikel Arteta tied with 177. So he has been a good manager. At 24 years old and 29 days, Bukayo Saka becomes the 7th youngest player in Premier League history to reach 100 goal involvements, and the youngest since Lukaku did it in 2017 when he was 23 years old and 267 days. Martin Odegaard is the first player in Premier League history to be substituted before halftime in 3 consecutive Premier League start. I hope it doesn't turn into a Rojiki. Mason Mount scored Manchester United's opener, and that goal rounded off an 18-pass move, the joint most for a goal in the Premier League this season, and their most in a Premier League game since Bruno Fernandes versus Burnley in September 2023, which was also 18 passes. When Kudus scored for Tottenham this weekend, it made him the 45th different nationality to score for Spurs. Only Fulham have more different nationalities scoring for them, with 47. Since the start of May, Bournemouth's Antoine Semenyo has been directly involved in more goals than any other player, with 8 goals and 4 assists since May. Since Ange Postecoglou took charge of his first game at Nottingham Forest, Forest have conceded more goals than any other Premier League side in all competitions, which is 12. That man just doesn't believe in defense. As you can imagine, ahead of the next game week, Semenyo is the most brought-in player, with 415,000 people bringing him in. Haaland, 339,000. Voltemada, 314,000. Caicedo, 261,000. Kudus, 227,000. Most players out, Mo Salah, 353. Grealish, who seems to be injured, 206,000. João Pedro, 194,000. I guess people are done with him. Gyokeres, 178,000. I guess people are done with him after failing to score against West Ham. Richarlison, of course, that squad rotation killed us. 170,000 removed him. And Semenyo is the top performing player of Game Week 7. The highest points this week come from Platinum support. This manager used their bench boost and got 135 points. In goal, they had Martinez 1 point, Timber 11, Trufer 5, Van Heck 11, Rice 11, Caicedo 10, Gakpo 7, Semenyo, who was his captain, 36, Grealish 10, Haaland 8, Pedro Porro, João Pedro 2, Raya 6, Mateta 2, Munoz 8, Pedro Porro 7. Well done. Makes me wish I used my bench boost a week or two before. In our league table, Mark Giosh, manager of MGMFC, got 96 points, and he didn't use his bench boost, which is fine because he had 2 points on his bench. In goal, he had Pope, who gave him 7. He had 3 from Gay, 7 from Cucurella, Gabriel gave him 9, Bruno gave him 3, Grealish gave him 10, Semenyo captain gave him 36, Kudus gave him 12, Eze gave him 6, Mateta gave him 2, Isidoro gave him 1. And that's how he got 96 points. In our group, we had 8 or more people have more than 90. Of course, number 1 had 96, Dennis Alubiri got 93, Noblesse manager Luffy D got 93, Onyango Mandela got 93, Richard Madegwa got 92, Ron Chisaka got 91, Peter Kimani got 91, and Ramon Poles got 90. In terms of making the most transfers this week, Don Clinton has a competitor. World champion Dennis Kom made 10 transfers, and Don Clinton made 10 as well. Bonaji made 5, Mike Mbugwa made 5, and Kush Kid, Dennis Odera, Anton, and Angular Nayo all had 4 each. When it comes to the highest change in team value, Jeffrey Jeremy has added 0.7 to his team value. Overall rank riser, Mr. MGM Mark Yosh has jumped 2.8 million positions this week. Well done. In our league, of course, he has jumped 53 positions as well. The most expensive team, or rather the team with the highest team value, is Capiende Massive, managed by Alvin O. The team has a value of 102.6. In terms of teams losing value, Emmanuel Ogbogu's team and Eliun Joroge's team have both lost 0.6 in value this week. Melvin Keter has dropped 2.5 positions globally. And in terms of red streak of arrows, Rasho Kangalo, and 2 others. The other 2 being Mozart J and Don Clinton. Of course, Don Clinton, the transfer mogul. Both of them have been seeing red arrows for 6 weeks in a row. Tatjana Mislenovic has seen his team lose great value, and his team is now 98.8. When it comes to the least points this week, that honor belongs to Checkmate, managed by Melvin Keter, who coincidentally is the person who's dropped the most in the league. Unlike last week where the person who got 13 had used the wild card, this one is just somebody whose team is just doing nothing naturally. So, for the 23, here's Pickford, who got 3. Virgil van Dijk, Mr. Twerker, 1. Van de Ven, 2. Reece James, 4. Nico Williams, 0. Anderson, 1. Salah, 2. Reinders, 3. Pirro, 1. João Pedro, captain, 4. Wood, 2. Goodness, why are people not having Haaland? The bottom 5, Emmanuel Oboya had 33. Mozart J had 34. Ali Muddin had 35. Murunga Imanyara and Ibrahim Ali both tied for 5th from bottom with 37 points. When it comes to league dropping, Ali Muddin and Ibrahim Ali both dropped 50 positions in rank, which makes them tied for number 1 in terms of losing their rank on table. When it comes to good transfer outcomes, Mr. Moses Cheget of Team Kubwa used his wildcard this week, and as a result of it, he got 35 more points than he would have had he kept his old team. Number 2, Architect Sadiq Suleiman got 34 points more than he would have last week had he kept the same team. Zlatan Notimovic, 33. Brian Ruteri, 31. And in number 5, we have a tie between David Moy and James Durango. Well done, guys. I hope that shrewdness continues. Now, when it comes to the team with the most goal scorers, Team Noblesse, managed by Luffy D, had 7 goals scored by his team. When it comes to the streak of green arrows, LED is continuing his meteoric rise. For the 6th week in a row, he's seeing green. Keep it up. When it comes to captain choices, it is very clear that Haaland was a favorite. 123 managers chose him. 25 managers chose Salah. Gyokeres was chosen by 8. Saka was chosen by 5. Wood was chosen by 4. Hey, these Wood people, I'm sure they're not playing anymore. Semenyo was chosen by 4. Well done, guys. You guys are calculated people. Bruno chosen by 3. João Pedro by 2. Palmer, these guys are not playing for sure, by 2. Anthony by 2. Oh, that was quite a gamble. Tommy, I'm looking at you, Tommy. Bomo, captain by 2. Watkins by 2. Palhinha by 1. Ash, that was a gamble and a half. Richarlison, Kudus, Hudson-Odoi, Grealish, Doku, Foden, Chiesa, Gakpo, Van Dijk, Raul, Mateta, Sarr, each chosen by 1 manager. So it's clear that we all had many of us had very unique ideas about who would be a good captain. It didn't work out for many of us. Let's hope to do better next week. And yeah, this is the end of the podcast. Now, this is just a preview. As it is the international break, I will do a podcast much closer to the next game week. Up until then, enjoy the international break. Take care of yourselves. Bye.